Okay, welcome council, welcome staff. It's 1 p.m. on November the 9th, 2021. Like to call this meeting to order and like to also welcome anyone that would be listening in via YouTube or the pre-recorded version of this afterwards. Welcome to our council meeting. So at this time, I will read the land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and the Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. At this time, I'll ask for a moment of silent reflection so that we may reflect upon our duties as counselors of today, and also to acknowledge all of those who have sacrificed their lives in all the past wars, for also in Remembrance Day on November 11th at 11 a.m. Moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Ask council at this time if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing no hands, thank you. I'm looking for approval of the agenda for the November 9th, 2021 meeting, which is today, be approved as circulated or amended. Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Looking for an approval of the council minutes of the meeting of October the 26th. To be adopted as presented or amended. Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt as presented, I assume then. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing no hands, thank you. On to the consent agenda then. We have C1 and C2, correspondence for information. I'm looking for a motion then that we approve the consent agenda as circulated. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. At this time, we have no delegations or presentations, so we're right on into the staff and committee reports. So R1 would be Ed Whitmore, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator, and this report is regarding our Site Plan Control Agreement 2341 Boundary Road. Ed, the floor is yours, and you're muted at this time.
Okay, R1 you said?
Yes.
Okay. So the site plan control agreement, this has been an ongoing process. For background information, council passed a site plan control bylaw back in July of 2020, making all cannabis facilities subject to site plan control. And then council passed a zoning bylaw amendment in September of last year. And so that helps to regulate the cannabis facilities in the rural zone and agricultural zones. It's all come a long way since Trudeau brought in these, passed the legalization of cannabis. But today we're here to do our first development, and it's for medical purposes, cultivation of medical marijuana for cannabis. There's going to be 20 wholly enclosed greenhouses located at 2431 Dummer Asphodel Road. And so the owner of the property has retained professional consultants who have worked through this long and tedious review because we wanted to make sure we got everything right. We had a traffic impact study done. We had hydrogeological evaluations completed. We had peer review done, and made sure that everything, all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted before we brought forward the application to the township. So the application before us today, we have a site plan control area bylaw that was included in the package, and the zoning bylaw, just so that you could refer back to those on what we passed last year. And so we found on this application here today that there were no additional requirements needed for the hydrogeological study that was done, that there was no concerns identified with water consumption. So having 20 greenhouses, at first glance, it sounds like an awful lot and everything, but when they do the calculations, and the package was fairly thick, that it ends up being, and it's like 100-acre parcel of land, it ends up being about maybe 2 houses, like 2 4-bedroom houses. That's about the water consumption that may be used thereabouts, because like a 4-bedroom house is about 2,000 liters per day. And so what they're proposing is maybe around 500 maximum liters per day, which for that size of a property, water definitely wasn't a concern. And they're taking water from a dug well. So again, it's not a concern whatsoever as far as the water issues. So when this was brought to our attention, and this is probably ongoing now for about a year, we've had the OPP and the township bylaw officer attend the site at random checks to make sure that they comply with our bylaws and that they continue to go through this process. And so we had an application done, all the consulting was done, the fees were all paid, and so now we've addressed to the best of our ability, I think, any nuisance items like odor or garbage or any type of parking or concerns that you might run into. So the bylaw is attached, and the construction details, the traffic study, the hydrogeological assessment, the site plan control agreement, the works if need be, and it shouldn't be, but we'll circulate it to Orca because the greenhouses are outside the regulated area, the hatched-in area. But if it was an issue, then Orca would be required to approve it prior to issuing the permits. And I just have a conclusion note in there that we're trying to mitigate any negative impacts with the neighbors or anything, and we've addressed the odors. They're going to have to install a carbon type filter that's equivalent the size for the cubic feet, the volume of the building, to make sure that there's no odors for any of the neighboring houses that are a long ways away. Like they've met all the zoning requirements, the 250 meter, we have an enhanced setback to the nearest dwelling unit, and so we've done that, or else they would have had to go through a zoning bylaw amendment application. And so they complied with all of our rules that we've put in place, and now the application is before council for approval.
Hey, thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
So like you mentioned at the very beginning, Pierre Trudeau there, or whatever, he's not Pierre, but
Justin.
Yeah, he's brought this into our township for us, and thank him very much for that. It is an agricultural product. It's very tough to beat that one for sure. It is a business. And the way that you're describing it, it sounds like it's going to be a very viable business and looked after properly. So that's good to know. So it's open for questions from council. Anybody have any questions at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the report, Ed. Yeah, I'm sure it's been an awful long, drawn-out process for the owners, but I'm glad our staff and ourselves have done this work way back when and able to move forward on it. So just a quick question. I'm sure there'll be more around the table. I noticed in the report, and I was just going through, I meant to highlight it and I forgot to. It stated in there on the for the greenhouses that the plastic would be removed by the owners in the fall. Was that correct? And if so, like, does Shane have to go in and make sure that's done, or that was just something that I questioned, because quite often in those greenhouses they stay up all year, other than I realize the snow load, but I wondered about that. And then ensuring that the site plan control is in place. Does there have to be annual inspections done by the township or through Health Canada, or how does that work to ensure the protocols remain in place after we've given the okay?
Okay, so the first part is, through you, Mayor, the first part, the manufacturer of the greenhouses, they warranty them provided you take down the plastic, and it's a certain November date generally for these structures, and then you put them up. Generally, they are going to be in production for the sun from May till November, but it's rare that we have a November like we're having right now. So normally you would think by October the weather's dirty enough that you're not going to see a lot of production out of them. So that is just their own personal warranty as far as policing the plastic or the material for the greenhouse themselves. And it would make sense to take them down unless you're very lazy, I guess, and unless you can buy one that can withstand the snow load. But for the most part, they can't withstand that snow load, and you even have to, even the ones that can withstand the snow load, you have to clear the snow away from the base of them because it can't pile up against the sides of them, or it'll do severe damage as well. Okay. And so the second part would be the regulated medical marijuana licensing. The OPP, or the provincial police, they do random checks, and depending on the staff and depending on time constraints and everything else, they try to go to all the various sites at different times to make sure that the licenses, they check out if they're good for 1,600 plants type of thing, then they would go around and estimate to make sure that they don't have 16,000 plants type of thing. If they did, then they would be locked down, cleared out, and they would have to go through the courts for that, for overdoing their licensing. So our part is done unless we receive a complaint about say odors. Then we would have our bylaw officer go out, or myself go out to the site and check out to make sure that the filters are installed, to find out where these odors are coming from, and if it is cannabis. Like, they can't even have cannabis byproducts like stalks and stuff like that outdoors. It has to be kept indoors, and we'll make sure that the filters are in place, and they have to do what they have to do, or they're not going to be in compliance with their bylaw. And so hopefully they'll just they've done everything that we've asked so far. So they've been playing ball with us, and hopefully they will continue. And if anything becomes an issue, that they fix it right away. And so I wasn't specific with the filter type here, but I called like a Peterborough cannabis that supplies all the different filters and lighting and all of that, and they referenced a few for this size of greenhouse to be around a $500 filter, and then an inline fan for about $250. So these fans will more than adequately, and filters will more than adequately do for a long time. So we know how to regulate them, and we know what size, and they can provide one equivalent as long as there's no odor. And when I was employed up north in another green grow operation, I went into a site that had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of plants in the building. And there was one of these filters. It was a 2-story building, 4,000 square feet on each floor. There wasn't, and I was standing in the middle of all these plants. I could not smell a single plant. That's how wonderful these carbon filters are. So that'll be up to us to enforce those carbon filters and make sure that the site doesn't get untidy, type of thing. But other than that, the police will regulate licensing and stuff.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Councillor Ward, you had your hand up, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Ed, I do have a water question. I was just wondering, how would the intake of the water be monitored? What if they did take more water than what they are proposing? And the second question to that, what about the runoff water on the groundwater, the runoff from the like the 20 proposed greenhouses, and what impact would that have on the West Ouse River?
As far as the amount of water, they were the consultants have advised that they were planning on putting in those. You've probably seen those plastic tubs of water. That they're a large tank. I don't know if they're 1,000. They're either 500 or 1,000 possibly liters of water, and so they would fill those up, and then have one of those in each building, and those they use it on an ongoing basis. So all of the plants are not to be in the ground. All of the plants will be in an individual little pot. So they're only going to put in the water in the individual pot. There will be no disturbance of the soil whatsoever, and so there should be no. It's not like a sprinkler system type of. It's going to be an individual walk around and do each. That way you minimize the amount of water. And as far as measuring that type of water, and it is from a dug well near the river. None of the consultants, and our peer review was completed by Stantec, none of them identified that there should be an issue with it for what they're planning on doing for these 20 greenhouses whatsoever. So I don't know how we would ever measure and monitor it, because they weren't sure until they did all the engineering and the calculations that were required whether they would need a permit to take water. And you need a permit to take water after you take at least 50,000 liters per day. That's what the Ministry of Environment requirements would be. And so they're only proposing maximum like 5,000 per day. So they're not even, nowhere near where they would have to be. So that's all that I have as far as measuring the water goes. I don't really know, other than if they had possibly tried to do more greenhouses, that type of thing. I don't know.
Okay, thanks for that. If I may have a follow-up, Mayor, just a personal question. Are all reports done in US gallons instead of the empirical gallon? Because those are two different, like for the per liter, you know how they were doing the 2,000 gallons and per
Yep.
greenhouse. So are all reports always done in US gallons, not empirical gallons?
No, I've seen them in both, so
Okay.
I have. But I did the calculations as well to make sure that they converted to the liters, and the math was done right. They did have one error in their note, but when I did the math out, the final answer was the correct answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, if I can. Ed, thank you very much for putting this all together. You answered a lot of my questions as I read through it. So certainly we meet the percentage requirement of less than 2% of their land. All setbacks are met. We've got the carbon filters there to address odor. We asked for and received the water study. The water runoff question you kind of answered through Councillor War. And I'm assuming obviously this application has their medical license already secured to be able to grow these?
They had 4 medical grow licensing in the past, and so they would have to be current in order to stay legal with the province and with the official OPP.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Archer, please.
It's through you, Mayor. Ed, how long, when they would get their license, is there a 1 year late, is it renewable every year, or is it how many year license do they get when they?
All of the license that I've seen, they expire in a 12-month time frame. Generally from the date of issue. It's not a calendar year. So if it's an April 21st, it expires the following April 21st type of thing.
Okay, I just was questioning. Other than that, I think it's an excellent report. Very good.
Great, good questions, good answers, good report like you've just heard. So I guess we're looking then for the recommendation then that we accept this report regarding the site plan control agreement, and further that the Council of Asphodel-Norwood authorize myself, the mayor, and the clerk to execute a site plan control agreement with Zhang for the proposed development on the site known as 2431 Dummer Asphodel Road. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor then, please. Thank you. Very good. R2 then, Ed, would be regarding the site plan control agreement, 2329 Asphodel 4th line.
Yes. Okay. This is similar, but on a much smaller scale. So this is a site plan control agreement that's been submitted to the municipality from 2760 98.5 Ontario Inc. And this is to cultivation for medical purposes as well, and it's within a portion of a one building, and the type of building is a Kwanzaa hut, and it's located at 2329 Asphodel 4th line. So I've attached the site plan control area bylaw that we passed last July and the zoning bylaw that we passed last September. The owners of this property put forward an application. The site plan, the 2 bylaws are attached, the site plan control area bylaw and the zoning bylaw, which regulates cannabis. The site plan control agreement's been attached, and the site plan control application, and with the application comes the site plan and the building construction details. Again, ORCA, if required, and it shouldn't be, but if it was required, we would make sure we did that prior to issuing building permits. And as far as we can tell, we've done everything that we can to govern any concerns such as odors or separation distances between the nearest neighbors and adequate parking. So they're complying with the zoning bylaw. They're complying with the site plan control bylaw. And if there's questions, this is almost a mirror image of the agreement that we've just passed on the other one, only it's a much smaller scale of one portion of one building.
Hey, thank you, Ed. Like you said, it's almost a mirror image of the other one, only on such a smaller scale. Is there any questions concerning this report, Council? All right, seeing no hands. The only thing that I had to say about it, Ed, was I noticed out there that they're actually have crops that surround everything too. They've got corn growing everywhere. So
Yes.
it's nice to see that it's a multi-use farm and not just strictly used for the growing of cannabis, that it's actually rented out, I guess you'd say, as a farm too. So, I mean, it's good to see not the ground just going to waste on that one. So.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. All right, so the recommendation then, council, almost the same as the other one, is that we accept this report for the site plan control agreement, and the number is 2760-985 Ontario Inc. for information, and that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood authorize myself, the mayor, and the clerk to execute a site plan control agreement with Ontario Inc. for the proposed development on the site known as 2329 Asphodel 4th Line. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor War. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All in favor then, please. And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ed. That was good.
You're welcome.
Okay, R3 then would be Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer, and this report is regarding our alcohol policy update. Candace, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So the township adopted its current alcohol policy in 2013 due to changes in regulation at the provincial level with the Gaming Commission and through recommendations received through Peterborough Public Health. It's time to update the policy. It was on the docket to have done prior to the pandemic, but then of course, with the pandemic, meeting and event spaces have not been rented out for anything, let alone an event that permitted alcohol consumption. So it was put a bit on the back burner to deal with COVID related items, but as restrictions are beginning to ease, we moved it back to the front burner and to ensure that it's updated and compliant with all Peterborough Public Health recommendations and provincial regulations prior to start renting our meeting and event spaces for events that could potentially have an alcohol component to them. Areas of change, I'm not going to read the entire policy out to council. I trust that you had a chance to review in your agenda package, but the highlights are we added some language in respect to cannabis, as that is obviously our new reality. We added language in regards to respect to tailgate events. So the province did pass legislation that permits tailgate events. The Township of Asphodel-Norwood is adopting through policy to not permit tailgate events. Changes to some serving hours. So the length of time that an event can serve alcohol has been extended from 1 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Update references to staff, update areas in which special event permits will not be granted for alcohol consumption. Obviously, we have, as the township is growing, we have new parks and facilities. So just housekeeping, cleaning up that section of the policy. Remove council as a body to be notified of an infraction. I don't feel that we need to be bringing a report back to council with those types of details. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then financial implications as part of the update to regulation, we will have to update some signage, get some new signage. I believe we'll probably go through the temporary route where it's signage just put up when an event is taking place and then it comes back down when the event is no longer occurring. I will leave it with council if you have any specific questions in regards to the policy itself.
Thanks, Candace. Pretty straightforward, good policy. Any questions from council at this time? Oh, told you it was straightforward. Okay, very good. So now the recommendation before us is that we accept this report with the alcohol policy update and that we adopt the updated alcohol policy as presented. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor then, please. That's carried. Thank you. So R4 brings up Daryl Payne, our fire chief, and this is regarding our fire prevention officer. Daryl, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So a quick run through of the report, just that the job of the fire prevention officer is mentioned, and then his duties are mentioned in the second part. And the reason we're bringing this forward that the council in his established bylaw has never formally recognized the fire prevention officer. And when, if it is formalized, he would, his duties would be put down in the establishment bylaw, and we would go from there. Because of the population growth, the projected population growth, the volume of calls that are increasing annually, a fire prevention officer, a dedicated fire prevention officer would certainly make our fire department within our township much stronger. So he would work in tandem with the fire chief in performance of his duties. And the fire prevention officer would, sorry about this, would certainly strengthen, because the township is redefining itself as it grows because of the changes we're having. And this would be able to perform the duties much more efficiently.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. That's a pretty straightforward report too. Any questions from council at this time on this report? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. Thanks, Daryl, for the report. Yeah, and certainly the ask is certainly not a lot. I guess I just wondered about the process. Is this from the firefighters themselves? Do they do an application process, or is that how the process is going forward in order to choose somebody? I'm just curious about the process.
Yes, the job will be posted with certain job criteria they have to meet, or they'll need the education to do so. They'll be posted for a certain amount of time. Then there will be a committee put together, and they'll go through their resumes, and there'll be an interview, and then the decision will be made.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Daryl, so potentially this will be one of our own current fire people that will become like, we're not necessarily going to have to hire somebody new to come in, be a fire person in Norwood and then become the fire prevention officer.
We're going to try to keep it internally, yes.
Okay. Okay, and it makes sense. We're growing, and we're to your point, we're at the point where we probably need to have a little more dedicated resource to this position. Makes sense.
Candace, I seen your hand up.
Thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of things for council. So currently in the fire department budget, which has already been presented to council in draft at a previous meeting, you will see in their wages that are already allocated to fire prevention. So those wages are for an internal firefighter who is conducting those duties already. And that, I guess, scope of work, or that scope of responsibility, is currently being done by internal resources. There is zero desire or intention to make this outside. We're basically formalizing what's already happening. So internal firefighters are performing this without having the title and without receiving the honorarium. So it's just basically ensuring that our establishing bylaw will catch up to what our operations are. And the budget for wages has already been there and has been there for years and years. So there should not be any implication there other than the annual honorarium moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a couple, I guess, Daryl. So does this help you in the evenings when you get a complaint on your phone? You're able to just send out a text to someone and they can go check, say, a disturbance or a smoke violation or something like that. Does this help your job out in the evenings too then?
That could be a possibility if they're available, but if I'm closer, I'll be taking it, as you know. So yeah, that would help me out.
Okay, and one other one then is that some of the presentations that you'd probably do at the school, would this person be part involved with that too?
Yes, that would be a major part of education. Education for fire prevention is mandated by the OFM, and he would take a lead on this, yes.
Yep,
sorry, he or she, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hear you there. Okay, very good. All right, any other questions of council then on this one? All right, seeing no hands. So this motion then would be the recommendation that we accept this report regarding the appointment of a fire prevention officer, and that we authorize staff to commence the internal recruitment process, and that we direct staff to amend the bylaw 2019-32 fire establishing bylaw for council's consideration at the next meeting of council. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion? Sorry. All in favor then? Very good, thank you, carried.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Daryl. R5 then would be Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer again, and this report is regarding the update to the structure of EDBAC, Economic Development Beautification.
Thank you, Mayor. So as council is aware, the EDBAC committee was formed in 2016 when the Economic Development Committee and the Beautification Advisory Committees both merged. The Economic Development Committee was formed in 2013 as with the Beautification Committee ongoing since 2008, so a long-standing committee. Since that time, the committee has been kind of pivotal in ongoing successes in the township of the community guide, the Christmas passport, showcase Asphodel-Norwood, as well as they have assisted when asked to help volunteer with some of the other committees' events over the years. But what seems to be happening is needing a change of mandate, a change of purpose in order to reinvigorate the committee. So prior to the pandemic, conversations started to take place for exactly that, the potential need to refocus the committee. Economic development is growing. It is definitely something that is very difficult for a volunteer group to take on, and it's something that needs to be addressed on a weekly basis. It's not something that necessarily we can kind of pick and choose which months we're doing it, as well as it's very difficult to give that mandate to a volunteer group and I think have them feel that they're contributing back to the township as much as they would like to. So there was a bit of a gap there. So township staff sent out a survey to all of the members in September. All of the members responded. And we asked some questions, how long you've been on the committee, which the average response was 3 to 10 years. Showcase Asphodel-Norwood was identified as a member's favorite project or event to date. 60% of the members stated that they had a project or activity they wish to bring forward. And those activities included planting of trees and shrubs on township-owned property, a suspension bridge over the Trent system to join the township to the village of Hastings, increased collaboration with other committees, and hosting a teeny tiny summit. For those of you who don't know, the Teeny Tiny Summit is an economic development focused event hosted by OMAFRA, and it is held in rural communities. When asked what the focus of the committee should be moving forward, 40%, the vast majority, said it should be project and event driven. They supported the current meeting schedule with no meetings in July, August, or December. 90% of the members felt the size of the committee was adequate. And then there were some additional comments made. We left a section, so in case we didn't ask a question in which they wanted to speak to, we gave them the opportunity to speak freely. And basically it stated a lot of what we anticipated, that the role of economic development should rest with township staff and PCAD. Need to move forward with making the township beautiful, need a new mandate to ensure volunteers are participating in things that matter, and increase communication and relevance. So the committee members were forthcoming and detailed in all the responses. Township staff put them together and then took a step back and looked at how we could best ensure that we're respecting and recognizing the wishes of our volunteer base, as well as ensuring that the township is moving forward in the direction in which it needs to move forward. So with that, township staff is proposing the renaming of the EDBAC committee to the Special Projects Committee with a new mandate and focus as detailed in the terms of reference provided in today's agenda package. The purpose and mandate would be that, of course, it would be an advisory committee to council on special events and beautification recommendations. They would prepare a work plan each year for approval in the municipal budget, so in order for them to execute it the following year. I think there's probably an opportunity. The term of this committee, of course, is to next December 2022 to coincide with the term of council, as the new council coming in would need to appoint their committees. But I think there's an opportunity to do a longer term in order to have a multi-year work plan, perhaps, and to ensure that they have the appropriate budget. So that's something that has been lacking from my chair, from what I'm seeing with the committees. Is it's great to have a volunteer group put together. Norwood is fortunate. We do have a strong base, but if they don't have the financial resources, they tend to just spend all of their time fundraising for themselves in order to work on their mandate or become relevant. And so I think what we're going to see with this terms of reference is they have the ability to create a work plan. It gets supported by myself. It'll get presented then to council. It'll get represented in the municipal budget. I don't suspect we're going to be looking at huge dollar figures here, but at least they have the money. They can still be encouraged to fundraise, but it isn't going to be the only thing they do is fundraise to in order to move forward. It'll be overseen by the community program coordinator, economic development assistant. They'd have to appoint a chair, vice chair, and secretary. The treasurer would be myself as the township treasurer. And of course, the committee would not provide direction to the Parks Department. The committee would be responsible for Showcase Asphodel-Norwood on an annual basis in conjunction with township staff. And I honestly think that this new mandate, and once they get a work plan approved and they get something in the municipal budget to work forward from, I think you're going to see that committee get a renewed energy. And I think you're going to see some pretty great things happening around Asphodel-Norwood based on the efforts of this committee. And I do suspect, and I would support and encourage that this model be adopted with the other committees that the township has as well. I will leave it for council for any questions.
Thanks, Candace. That's a pretty good report too. Questions, council? We have two of you on the Ed Back committee here. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for this, Candace. A lot of thought and preparation and input has gone into it. So it's nice to see it all come together. And actually, what I had written down, you'd answered my question because with the time frame, you had 1 year, and I thought, oh, 1 year just doesn't get, you know, the ball rolling enough. But I understand it's 1 year for this, and then hopefully hook it into the 4-year term, because I think you need that consistency moving forward. So to be honest, that was my only comment. I don't have any questions other than I like it. I like the report. I like the direction it's going in, and looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. Thank you.
Good comment. Anyone else at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor, again, really just echo what Deputy Mayor Burt said. I also sit on this committee, great group of volunteers, and I think if we really provide them with a purpose and a budget, they'll have some great ideas to really help beautify and make our township look awesome. And I think we all struggled a little bit when it came to the economic development portion, because to Candace's point is some of these things are timely that we need to respond to, and they're kind of above some of our pay grades to manage and deal with. So I think separating the two makes sense. And as I said, we've never had a lack of getting volunteers to want to join this group. So I'm looking forward to what they will do in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I wish I could be part of that group too, to be honest with you. I was there at the beginning. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Actually, it does say in the report, head of council or their designate in one township. So you can kick whoever you want off and be on there, Mayor.
I'm pretty sure I'd lose that arm wrestle in a heartbeat. Anyways, no, this is great comments, great report again. I guess my only question then, would this committee be part of the community guide? I know staff do probably 90% of it, but I just wondered if they were able to have their eyes on it or not, or, okay.
No, I think as it's gone and it's transitioned, it's kind of become a bit of a cookie cutter project for township staff. That being said, I think we would ensure that the draft was circulated for comment, but as far as the actual preparation of the document itself, it will rest with township staff.
Yeah, that's where it was going in the long run. I know that because there was a lot involved, and then we needed the township staff and her to do most of the printing and cut and paste and one thing after another. So yeah, it was quite involved. So good choice there. So any other questions on this? Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I hope I stay on line long enough to get this question out. I was just wondering, do you feel that there's going to be any overlap with any existing committees that we have right now that kind of do a few special projects? And how do you think that they could work together on going forward?
Yes, I believe there probably would be. I find probably the Cultural and Heritage Committee, even the Mill Pond, do have their own specific unique events to themselves. I think this will be a bit more driven towards, I suspect, beautification of the township. There's certain areas within the township I know that the committee has mentioned in the past that they'd like to kind of get a hold of and revitalize them. Some stormwater management pond areas by the food land there between Highway 7 and the food land by the electric vehicle charging station. Was not getting the murals on the end of buildings and at the four corners updated, things along that line. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there wouldn't be a conflict in events, but I do think that some work will go into complementing each other on some of the events and supporting one another and helping one another. Although each committee they take on a lot in a year. So I don't know individually. So hopefully they'll be able to help each other out. But once we get this mandate in place and we speak to the volunteers and all the committees get back up and running, I'm hoping that the chairs will start communicating with one another. And then the community program coordinator will liaise with each of the committees and make sure if there's any opportunities there, that she's bringing those opportunities together, because it's sometimes difficult. By nature, I think we work in silos. It just happens. You kind of head down, get to work and get things done. So from township staff, we're the continuity. We see what each committee is doing. We know what each committee's work plan is, what their budget is, where they're at in the status of each project. So it'll be up to us, I think, to a certain degree, to close those gaps and identify any opportunities for collaboration and making sure that they get together to get that done. So.
Thanks for clarification. I think that's great. I think, complementing each other with everything that we do in the community, I think that's wonderful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Well timed, I think, too. So, all right. I see no other hands at this time.
Actually,
then we'll look. Oh,
Mayor,
sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Sorry, if I could just ask a second question through you, Mayor. Candace, so just kind of walk me through the steps. So we'll basically disband. If this is passed, first of all, we would then disband current EDBAC, and then we will go out looking for volunteers to sit on the new special committee board, or will we grandfather in some? Just, can you help me out?
Sure. It was my thought, or I guess it would be my recommendation now, that we do not disband. We're just renaming the committee and giving it a new mandate, so that the current members that are appointed through bylaw would just transfer over. That being said, if someone wishes to not move forward, then of course they have the opportunity to not move forward on the committee and make a decision for themselves. But then of course, next fall, we would then be recruiting for all positions on all committees based on the end of the term of council. So my goal after today, assuming that this is adopted, will be to get in touch with all of the members of the current EDBAC committee, set up a meeting with them at the Millennium Room, and propose a new mandate, explain to them what's happening, and hopefully we can come up with a work plan that is attainable and achievable in 2022. Because I happen to know the township treasurer who could possibly get that included in the 2022 budget just in time. So that's that's the goal anyway.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mayor, you will probably not be still able to be involved in that committee.
Well, let's keep talking then. No, that's good. I'm okay with that. All right, no other hands, no other second comments on any of this at this time. All right, looking for a motion then that council accept this report for information and that we approve the renaming of the EDBAC committee to the Special Projects Committee, and further that we approve the Special Projects Committee terms of reference and mandate as presented. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other questions on this motion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please. That's carried. Very good. Very good report. Thanks. All right, R6 then, Candace, our CAO Clerk Treasurer, and this report is regarding the updates to Procedural Bylaw 2020-33.
Thank you, Mayor. So as council is aware, the procedural bylaw is the governing document that governs council and its activities through a council meeting process. As always, housekeeping amendments are always required in order to ensure that we are following either current legislation or our current practices of the day. So in the spirit of that, we are recommending changes to Articles 2, 3, 5, and 18 as outlined in the staff report. Article 2 would be adding language to represent a governing set of rules in cases where the procedural bylaw is questions or does not address a certain issue. This is a mandated requirement. So what we are proposing in Article 2 is that if that does occur, that we would refer to any procedure followed in the Roberts Rules of Order. Again, that is just a procedural document that outlines different options or strategies if we ended up in a position where the procedural bylaw was not addressing a certain circumstance. Knock on wood, never happened in my day, but again, it's a mandated requirement. Article 3, the current term of council is set to expire on November 14th. Again, that's a change in the Municipal Act as it was previously a December date. So obviously the inaugural meeting of council needs to change. We are recommending that it is the second Tuesday after the 14th. Otherwise, we would have a meeting the very next day. So the election would end the night of the 14th at some point in time, or end of October, sorry, and we would be running the 14th would be your meeting date. So we are just making to give that extra week so that we kind of get that extra. So it's the Tuesday after the 14th, not the first Tuesday, but the second Tuesday after the 14th. If council is okay with that, if you would prefer it to see the very first Tuesday, the very next day after, then that would be the 15th, then that is fine as well. The change in location language will allow flexibility to where council meetings are held. This is due to the loss of designated council chambers, and the intent is to ensure that a consistent location is being used. But again, the procedural bylaw is allowing for some flexibility if at all required. And we will touch back on this again in my CAO list when we chat about in-person meetings. Updated language in regards to the number of meetings held in certain months to represent the recent schedule of council. Update language surrounding the platform that will be utilized to conduct electronic meetings. It's stated in the procedural bylaw very clearly that it would be Zoom. Again, that language was added back at the beginning of the pandemic because that's what we would be utilizing. When we go back to in-person, whether we go hybrid in order to get live and continue conducting electronic meetings, Zoom is likely not to be the platform. It is still being researched, and the way technology moves and changes, it may change. So we just kept the language flexible. I don't think we need to actually identify a manufacturer or a specific platform, just that we're conducting them in a secure location in an electronic format. Update the language to reflect where public notices are posted. Again, a housekeeping item because you can't get right into the municipal office anymore where the old bulletin board was located, and there's the community board on the exterior of the building outside of the municipal office. So that is where the notices will be posted. And to provide language to dictate the format in which a person can be a delegation to council. And the purpose of this is to avoid recordings being just submitted as a delegation that they need to actually attend council, either just in person electronically or in person, in a specific room, meeting location. I will leave it up to council for any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that. Like the last delegation that we had was not a very good recording. We couldn't hear it. So I remember that in the near past. All right. So any questions on this report, council? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Sorry, I just had a quick question through you, Mayor. So in Article 3 and it's number 6, the next and succeeding regular meeting of council shall be held whenever, and except for February, July, August, October, and December, when there'll be one meeting on the 4th Tuesday. In that bullet point number 6, and it's probably in here somewhere, but I didn't see it. Should there be something in there that also states, or at the call of the chair? Is it in the procedural bylaw somewhere? The only reason I'm saying that is, and maybe I'm the only one thinking this, the last meeting we had in October, it was massive. And if there was ever a need in those months where we only had one meeting and we needed to split it up, If that was possible to put that in there, or is it in there somewhere? I'm
It
not
is in
sure.
there. Yeah,
It
the
is in
mayor-
there?
Yeah, it's in the municipal act regardless of anything. The mayor
Okay,
can call a meeting, but we can easily add, or at the call of the chair, it's more than fine to have it clarified, but it is in here somewhere. I know it's in here.
I figured it was
But,
because it state, you state that at the end of every meeting as well, so.
Yeah, it's under like Article 4, because then as soon as you done that, it would become a special meeting. The head of council may at any time summon a special meeting of council.
Okay,
And that's the very first line of Article 4, Section 13. But we can add, and if the chair doesn't call it, a quorum of council, majority of council, 3 of you could get together and vote and say you want a special meeting of council and call one, kind of with or
Okay.
without it. But traditionally, the mayor calls the meetings in conjunction with the clerk. But you can literally add that language. It is not a big deal at all. If you-
okay. I was just
It's in there.
wondering. Okay,
But that's good though, that you took that into consideration for having an over lengthy meeting. I mean, we've been in some long ones before, but we've also had short ones, and you do get tired and your mind starts to wander, or you just get fatigued. So I understand how that works, and thank you for taking the consideration of staff in on that one for how long a meeting could run and the amount of workload that they could have too.
Well, and to be honest with you, we need those months where there's one meeting.
Yeah.
Because we literally every week, it's either agenda week or council meeting week. There's no break. So sometimes you need those weeks to get caught up and actually get some research done for upcoming stuff and get some staff reports written, and whether it takes, especially those ones that require a lot of consultation or a lot of research, and so having those every once in a while, staff actually requires it, especially, I know selfishly carrying the 3 hats, every once in a while having that meeting where although it ends up being a large meeting, we've had that break where we can actually concentrate on the content of the reports and getting some stuff sewn up instead of the agenda preparation or the council meeting itself and the fallout from the meeting. So, but that being said, we have discussed in the past, maybe having to throw on a planning meeting where we're just dealing with the public meeting portions of whether it be a zoning bylaw amendments or the consents and that sort of thing. And many municipalities do that, where they just hold a 3rd meeting in a month and all they do is planning. But we haven't been in a place where we would have to have that 3rd meeting every single month to be able to put that on the calendar. I think we're better off to just call them if we need them.
That's good. Just for clarification too, Candace, you pretty well have your managers meetings every week too, though, right? Still?
We have managers meetings. So tomorrow morning we'll have them. We have it the Wednesday morning after every council meeting to go over the meeting, directions given, what we're going to deal with at the upcoming meeting, go through the action list. If there's only one meeting in a month, we still have the managers meeting as if there was a council meeting. Yeah. So it's every 2 weeks. We don't meet every week. It's every other, basically.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Did that spur on any other questions or comments from council? All right. Seeing no hands then. So the recommendations before us that we accept this report regarding the procedure bylaw 2020-33 for information, and that we approve the recommended changes to the articles 2, 3, 5, and 18 as presented. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing nothing, all in favor then? That's been carried. Thank you. All right, on to into your wheelhouse now, Candace. Here we go. This report R7 is regarding the 2022 draft parks budget. We're starting budget talks again. Here we go. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we continue, this is the last council meeting where you're going to see individual draft departmental budgets. What's slated to come to the next council meeting is the full municipal operating capital, Norwood Water, Norwood Sewer, and Trent View Estates Water, all in draft form, with the public meeting set for adoption for the meeting in December. So in the spirit of that schedule, you'll find in front of you the 2022 draft parks budget. A lot of this council's already seen because we just adopted the 5-year park plan at our last meeting. Again, we just basically transferred over all of the capital work for each park from that park plan from 2022. So you'll see what's happening at each park. It's all detailed. Highlights include the new playground equipment at Asphodel Park, the playground expansion at the community center park, new picnic shelter in Norwood Park, and then some, just the Birdsall Wharf dock replacements section that's going to be shared with the Township of Otonabee South Monaghan. Other than that, it's pretty standard things that occur at the parks each year to ensure that they're beautiful for our residents. What isn't included in this is, I just wanted to draw council's attention to it, is the expansion to the skateboard park. That was included in the community center budget that was previously presented to council. It's proposed, the parks budget is proposed to realize a 4%, which boils down to $3,952 increase. We are going to be funding $80,000 from the to fund the playground expansion to the community center playground and the replacement of the play structure at Asphodel Park. That's coming out of the Parkland Reserve. This will deplete that reserve. It's been sitting there for quite a few years. This fund receives allocations from developers when there's a requirement to provide 5% of the value of the development lands in either cash, which is mandated to go to the fund for future park upgrades, or in land to develop a park. So you will have seen that in recent years. We've seen the new park, Norwood Park, in phase 1. And then of course you didn't see a park in phase 2 or phase 3. You will see new parkland in phase 4. We're not going to be pushing phase 4 into phase 1, but it will be much, much smaller. But we can't just keep funneling into there. So it's governed under Planning Act. Under the Planning Act, it's parkland in lieu. So it's either 5% in cash or 5% in land. The development charge fund is going to get $20,000 deduction to fund the shade shelter at the Norwood Park. Again, that park is only there due to development and growth, so the shade shelter is going to be funded under the development charges. A detailed general ledger breakdown is here for council's review. If you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Candace. We are the envy of Peterborough County for our parks, that's for sure. We've got lots of them and we look after them well. So questions from council? Anyone have any questions or comments? All right, sounds good. So the recommendation then for R7 is that we accept this report for draft parks budget of 2022 for information only at this time. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, Candace, would be this report is regarding the 2022 draft transportation budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So the draft 2022 Transportation Department budget proposes a $16,000 increase in revenues, an $87,000 increase in operating expenses, and $15,000 increase in capital. Overall impact to the budget is approximately $85,500. That includes the allocation to the surface treatment plant of about $259,000. That includes the completion of the third line of Asphodel between Centerline Road and Highway number 7. That's going to be partially funded through the gas tax, so it's going to take the full $130,000 or so allocation. That is all we receive from gas tax, so it won't fully fund it, but it will definitely assist. We're going to close some gaps on the Centerline Road between County Road 38 and Cameron Line, as well as on the fourth line between Sand Road and Centerline Road. And a lot of those gaps are created few years ago when it was a priority of council to surface treat some of the problem hills that washed out every year. And we went and put surface treatment on them to ensure that they were safe and didn't wash out. Well, then we kind of created these sections of surface. So we're just going to close some of the gaps in the areas that it makes the most sense. Some projects that have been deferred due to the pandemic is the sidewalk plans. You're going to see Elm Street, County Road 45 extension from Baker Street to Mapleview, as well as some locations on Highway 7, most notably to the west. Guide rail plan, the third line, when we are finished reconstructing the third line, there is some sections there that are going to need some guide rail, as well as the Sand Road Bridge that again has been deferred. The bridge dam plan is calling for the Alma Street pedestrian bridge as well as the Sand Road Bridge. So a bit of interesting news in regards to that. So the engineer was out and looked at the pedestrian bridge, the Alma Street one, and basically based on, it looks like they're going to recommend full replacement instead of repair. It's about 70% of the cost of a full one to fix it. So stay tuned, but I do suspect that that amount is going to have to increase of what I have here in the proposed budget, because I'm pretty sure once we get the full engineering report and the tender completed, that's not gonna be enough to cover it. So stay tuned. We're hoping that we have to have those numbers for council before the final budget. So I do suspect that that amount is going to change. Capital vehicles, we have been limping the 2008 pickup truck along. We had two 2008 pickups purchased back in 2008, and one of them was replaced in 2018. We've worked to separate them, so we're not replacing two pickup trucks in the same year all of the time. So we've managed to scrape 3 more years out of it. There's no scraping left. It is done. So it'll have to be replaced next year. Capital construction, you're going to see the warranty holdback for Centerline Road, warranty holdback for Albine Street, and then we're going to continue with the erosion mitigation, which the manager of public works has spoken to council about on Centerline Road. We will be doing some sale of assets. The excavator is our new excavator that was supposed to be here in September, is one of the items that is stuck on a ship in the ocean and can't get unloaded. So we are hoping that it'll be here in December. That is the hope. So based on that, the sale of that excavator is actually, because we don't divest ourselves, obviously, until we have the new one in service, because we need it on a regular basis. It'll actually hit the 2022 budget, as long as with the 08 pickup, the water tank, which we replaced this year. And there's a bunch of other items that the new manager of public works has found around the shop, just organizing things that he feels that we can divest ourselves of instead of just having it laying around. So we're looking at about bringing in approximately $45,000. Again, that is an estimate. We use Gov Deals for most of these things, so we'll have to see how that goes. Transfer to reserves. Again, that continues to be ongoing for future equipment replacement, greater backhoe, as well. In 2025, we're going to have to replace another snowplow truck. So the manager of public works and I have worked on an equipment replacement schedule, very similar to the 5-year plan, but we went out 25 years and have kind of what we need in what year approximately. Obviously, very similar to the 08 pickup. If we can squeeze an extra year or two out, then we do, but we have to plan for replacement in some years. So we've earmarked things and what we have to put in as a reserve allocation to be able to replace those assets when we need them to be replaced. So 2025 is going to be a really heavy year. Transfer from reserves for road construction. We have the Centerline warranty holdback, as well as the bridge and dam plan, which I just gave you the bad news in regards of that. The current balance is $617,000. We'll be transferring approximately $471,000 out of it. The development charge fund, $27,000, which is going to be the current approximate balance in that is 1.4 million. Don't get too excited because it's got to fund a lot of stuff in 2021, but we're pulling $27,000 from that for the Albine Street warranty holdback. Capital equipment. So again, we're of course pulling from reserves for the pickup because we've been putting money into reserves for the pickup for the last 4 years. We'll be pulling $55,000 out of the working funds, efficiency funding for the fuel system upgrades and the LED light replacement project for the shop, the public works shop, which has been deferred for a couple of years. The sand dome doors needs some major attention. So the bottom panels are rusting out anyway. So we have to get some pretty significant work done on the doors of the shop and the sand dome. So we've had a sand dome kind of reserve sitting there for probably 10 years of $5,000 just kind of sat there. So we're just going to utilize that towards fixing the door rather than just having it sit there. As well as we have a gas tax of 27,000 and change for the third line. Reconstruction will assist with that as well. The proposed operating budget incorporates, of course, the increase in payroll costs of the CPP, WSIB, Manulife. There's some step increases, increase in consulting fees. We have to do the biannual bridge and dam inspections in 2022, as well as this provincial fill regulation that they've come out with that we're going to have a consultant assist with the preparation of that. Expected increase in insurance renewal. That's no surprise to council. We are seeing a reduction in the gravel spreading expense. You have seen a similar amount before, but it's a pretty big difference from last year as we've done the east end in 2021, which is the largest section of the village. Every 5 years, it jumps up quite substantially. You're going to see an increase in the line painting and reflectivity of signs. The manager of public works and I just have chatted, and we need to see all of those lines and all of the safety concerns being addressed as soon as we possibly can early in the year. So we are expecting a budget concern there, because as soon as we are with the Peterborough County tender and we're included with their contractor, you fight Peterborough County and all the other municipalities. And we got done mid-September. It's not, what's the point? Obviously we went through the heavy traffic season with tourism. The kids are already back to school and we're line painting then the following week. So I'm not happy with that level of service. So we will be taking it on ourselves and going with a different contractor whom we have utilized in the past. Some years we have used the county and this contractor in a hybrid approach, but I think we'll be slowly going with being in control of our own destiny to ensure that the line painting is being done in the spring. The reflectivity of signs that has previously come to council. Obviously, we've entered into a contract with other neighboring municipalities for that. Increase in some repairs and maintenance for those pieces of equipment that are aging that are going to probably be replaced in 2025. A couple of other items that have come up since the draft has been repaired, nothing too major, but the water sanitary manager and I met this morning to go over the water sanitary rates and his priorities for 2022. And one of his identified priorities under the asset management plan is Ridge Street to replace the water main from Pine Street to the end. It's original from the village, and as he puts it in the words of Kyle, a ticking time bomb. So would really like to see that replaced. Well, obviously we're not going to rip that up and do it without having to deal with the road. So there's going to be an implication to the public works budget based on the fact that Kyle is going to have the road ripped up to replace the water main and readdress those valves at the corner of Pine Street and Ridge Street. So we will see an impact to the transportation budget. So you'll see that in the first draft in the next round, exactly how big of an impact that's going to be. Margaret Street is going to be completed as part of Norwood Park Phase 3. Next year, it was one of their requirements that they had to upsize the water main on Margaret in order to meet pressure requirements. So they will be upsizing that. The township is then going to take, you'll see this in the water budget, but we are going to replace the services while they're there. They're original. So we don't want to replace the water main without replacing the services to the property lines on those properties. Obviously, from the property line in is the responsibility of the homeowner, but we'll be looking at replacing the servicing in the water budget. There won't be much of an implication to the public works budget. I suspect none at all, because all of that falls to the developer to put the road back to its original condition. I think that is all of everything I can think of for the transportation budget. It is the largest budget, obviously, of the township. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot going on. But although I know I said that we would have a quieter year, it is. As much as it doesn't seem like it is, it will be a quieter year than what we've seen in the last couple of years.
Okay, thanks, Candace. When you say those numbers fast and they get repeated one after the other like that, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I'm sure you have it under control for us here.
Well,
And
you'll
we're-
see it all, and you need to see the whole thing. Seeing these little pieces is one thing, but once you see it all come together and the whole budget come together as one at the next meeting, and
Yeah.
when you see the final proposal and you see some tweaks in each of the departments, it all comes together. It'll be fine. There's nothing
That's
in
right.
here that's making me lose sleep.
Any questions from council at this time? Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thanks. Through you, Mayor. Yes, very detailed report again, Candace. I just have a couple questions, if I may. One of them, it's for the capital vehicles replacement for the pickup truck. Has there ever been any consideration to look at electric or a hybrid model to replace any of those vehicles going forward? And the second part, I'll just ask this question as we go. If the camera line to 38 is also being improved, would that be in the guide rail plan? Because that hill is very, very steep going from 38 to Cameron line. Those are my two questions from this. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I can tell you that as far as I know, the guide rails will then go in 2023. So the road reconstruction, everything wouldn't be done probably till September of next year. So then the guide rails would be kind of the spring of the following year. As far as electric for the public works pickup trucks, no. Now we have talked about it as far as if we were to ever, as a township, we don't have, you see a lot of them with cars, SUVs, those types of vehicles for their building departments, by law enforcement officials, administration. We don't have any municipal vehicles that aren't used for anything other than heavy duty work, whether they're carrying cold mix, whether they're plowing, all of those types of things. So all of the public works vehicles are required to work in a heavy duty capacity. So we haven't considered switching them to electric at this point, as there's just not a great of options out there for the scope of work in which we need them to complete. That being said, it's always on our mind. And as soon as we can have the opportunity to make that switch, we will be making that switch.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, especially because the provincial government or federal government probably pay for it.
Any other questions, council? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you. I did have a couple questions, but they were covered through, but one new one came up. So the Alma Street pedestrian bridge, I just wondered, when was that bridge last worked on? Because it seems in my mind it was a very short time ago, but obviously not. So I was just curious about the state of the bridge, because it didn't seem like it was that long ago that there was work done on it.
Yeah, there was a repair done, I'm going to say 7 years ago.
Okay.
There was a concrete repair work, again, to get 7 more years out of it. The next Band-Aid is going to be bigger. It's going to be anywhere from 65 to 70% of the cost of a new one. From a finance person, the 50% rule tends to be what we use. If it's going to cost you more than 50% to fix it, then you should be looking at replacing it. And if you're looking at spending, well, even if it's 60 to 70% to fix it, to get another 7 or 8 years out of it to then replace it, you're better off to replace it out of the gate. I suspect that 115 number is going to go to about 175. Is my guess. I hate throwing numbers out like that, but that's what I suspect around what it's going to be. So we're not talking,
Okay.
like, we're not talking that it's going to come back and be $500,000 or something. Like, we're talking it's going to be another 50, 60 grand in order to replace that bridge. When you have and unfortunately, it's not really a township staff decision. It's our decision and council's decision as to whether we fix it or replace it. But when the engineers have come in and they've done their inspection and they write that report and they give the recommendation as to what it is, from a risk assessment and risk management standpoint, we're really not in a position to ignore it.
No, I agree. We can't ignore the safety of our pedestrians, and the vehicle bridge section is fine. I have to assume that wasn't identified at all. It was just the pedestrian part of the bridge.
Yeah, it was just the pedestrian part. We only had the pedestrian part of the bridge looked at.
Okay.
That's all it was looked at. I know there was some work done in that area around that, as I said, 7 years ago or so. But I'd have to look back in records to be able to see exactly what it is that they had done and why. But I know that the engineer is stating that the cost to replace it is value for money versus fixing it. So again, until we get into the actual engineering reports, until we get into all of the tendering process, hopefully we have some better numbers and more information for you by December. The manager of public works is working on it. So hopefully we have that information is literally about 3 days old. So this report was already done and I wasn't about to redo the budgets again for this meeting, but all in all, I think it's going to be a pretty decent year. We're transferring to reserves as we have been for the last few years, ongoing for equipment. We've got our warranty holdbacks. The guide rails on Centerline Road will be completed by the end of the year. Houston has been out, so those sections should be replaced. Hydro 1 is dealing with that pole this month, or I may have to deal with it myself if we don't, but they've stated that they're going to be out. They've come out and done a preliminary assessment on it. They've come up with a game plan. Manager of Public Works has signed off on it. The engineer signed off on it. So we just need the big white trucks to roll in and move the pole. So.
Deputy Mayor Burt?
Kawartha Utilities were there yesterday doing something.
Yay. That's good news.
So there were several white trucks and equipment on the road. So I haven't been down since yesterday, but
from
could
your
be
lips,
something going on.
Hopefully that is exactly what has been happening out there. So the reserves that we've been saving for all along going to come into fruition. Obviously, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions of council? Like I think you'll see us do a final update again in December, but I think we're in pretty decent shape.
Council, questions?
This isn't
Go ahead.
through you, Mayor. This isn't really a question. It's just I was at the International Dealer in Peterborough yesterday. I know you want to get a snowplow in 2025. He was just telling me all his orders now have been pushed out till 2023, the ones he has on order now. So we might want to think if we want a snowplow in 25, you should be looking at maybe next year, starting to look at ordering something, because he said he doesn't know what they're going to do. Like they're pushing them out that far now. So.
Yeah, you're quite right. We have heard those bad news stories, and it seems to be we're worried like the grader in 2025, snowplow truck 25, 26, and that's exactly, well, look, our poor excavator was ordered how long ago, and it's still stuck on a ship.
Sure.
I mean, good job. We still our replacement program is so healthy that we've been able to keep the current assets on the road, that we're not literally without a piece of equipment waiting upwards of a year or 18 months to receive one, and then renting costs and all of that sort of thing, or paying for major repairs that aren't needed because you've had a new one on order. So we've been somewhat fortunate, but I agree, Councillor Archer, will probably have to increase that timetable.
Maybe order in 23 for 25.
Yeah, you're probably quite right. And hopefully the circumstance gets better, but not naive to think that it won't as well. It's going to take a long time to get caught up.
I have a question, I guess, for clarification. So when you talked about Ridge Street for sanitation or
Water main.
it's just water main. So the water main would only be down 8 or 9 feet then probably at the most on that street?
Oh, that's a Kyle question. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how deep the infrastructure is there. If I recall correctly, it's quite deep at the intersection of Pine and Ridge. If I remember correctly, but that might be the sanitary is
The
really deep
sanitary
there.
is 24 feet or so down there.
Yeah.
So
It's
what
really
I was
deep.
what I was getting at was if we have to go down that far, that whole street's pretty well going to be ruined. And you're talking about going west with that, I guess, to the end. Is that what you were talking?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've noticed, but at the intersection of Pine and Ridge, there's some valve work or some structure work there that's got some dipping. That's got to be corrected, and it needs to be corrected actually under the Pine Street scope of work, but it's a conversation for another day. But the water main from that intersection west to the end of Ridge needs to be replaced. And then we'll be putting a hydrant at the end of Ridge.
Oh, good. Thank you. And the other one was Margaret Street, when you talked about replacing the water mains to the property line. I just assume that you probably are going to notify the people there that live on that street that this would be the opportune time shortly afterwards to replace their water lines going into the house too, I would imagine. I mean, that's their responsibility, like you said, Candace. But, and I know they don't do the work at the same time that we're doing work, but it would be highly recommended, I would think, that the neighbors should pass it on, that they should get it done. If we're thinking about getting it done on our side, they should get it done on their side.
Yeah, so we will definitely be doing notifications to the property owners when the time comes. We can make that recommendation to them, and then it'll be up to them to move on or carry forward with it. But yes, they will be properly notified, of course.
Yeah, very good. Okay, any other questions on this report, Council? We've heard a lot, and we've taken in a lot. Thank you, Candace.
I know the transportation budget's always my favorite.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
All right, well, the recommendations before us that we accept this report for the 2022 draft transportation budget for information only at this time. Motioned by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried then, thank you. All right, R9, Candace, 2022 draft environmental budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this budget isn't near as exciting. It's not a whole lot going on for the 2022 year after the replacement of the transfer station bridge this year. We are now switching our focus over to the closure plan and transferring to reserves in order to support the ongoing closure plan. So you will see a decrease in the overall tax levy of approximately $13,000. There is no major changes to the environmental department proposed. We are seeing obviously an increase in revenues due to the growth in the township. Obviously, more residents buying bag tags, more residents utilizing the transfer station. We're also anticipating that we're not going to see a closure this year because I've told the pandemic to be kind for 2022. So I do suspect it will listen to me, or at least I hope. So all in all, not too many changes, switching the focus to the closure plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pretty straightforward. Council, any questions? All right, seeing no hands, then we're looking for a motion then to receive this for information, the draft parks budget, environmental budget. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor War seconded. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Did you have another drink of water yet, Candace? You're on again. R10. This is the management action list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So you'll see what we've addressed today. And of course, the last couple of meetings of the year tend to be a bit heavy as we try to cram everything in. So hopefully you're going to see a staff report with the financials and the layout for the in-person council meetings, the third quarter financial variance. There's going to be some surplus assets potentially by the manager of public works. The Centerline Road final report for the finances, which will talk about some erosion mitigation, as well as the guide rail plan and maybe an update on that hydro pole in the final report for Centerline. Development agreement for St. Paul's. I believe Orca has finally signed off on that. So barring any other concerns that I'm unaware of, we should be able to move forward with getting that development agreement signed for them. Kyle's going to be coming to talk to you about the DWQMS reaccreditation, as well as impact of the lightning strike on infrastructure. As we discussed at our last meeting, we've got a lot of the invoices in this week, so we know more about where we stand. You sit down during the meeting, so you should be fine. Fire recruitment results for any personnel updates should be good. Draft strategic plan, because I'm going to extend the 24-hour day clock to 30 hours to get that done. The full draft municipal budget, operating and capital, and all of the rates are coming forward on November 23rd. The document retention bylaw, I'll tell you right now, is not coming. And the development, Watson and Associates are not ready to report. They're still doing background. The collection tender result won't be till December 14th. That tender was released today. And then we've got some planning stuff, the EA for the water tower on the 14th of December. Municipal insurance renewal, which I was so hoping I would have had some sort of idea for this meeting, but hopefully for the 23rd meeting, I'll at least, we may not be presenting it for adoption, but maybe I'll have an idea of what that percentage is looking like, hopefully on the 23rd, but still haven't received the renewal package from Marsh yet. We've got a consent, a couple of zoning bylaw amendments, and then the RFP is out for the community center expansion project. So it'll be closed, and whoever the design build contractor will be awarded on the 14th of December. So then what will happen is the design portion will happen over the winter to break ground in the summer. You will also probably see skateboard, the All Wheels Park expansion, potentially RFP tender award during the December meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Council? Councillor Walsh, please, you're muted.
For you, Mayor. Candace, so if we don't have the municipal insurance renewal until December 14th, you're just going to have to plug in our best educated guess for final draft budget presentations in November?
Oh, I'll have it. I will I'll have it and will have had a chance to adopt. But the assumption based on my part will be assuming you're going to adopt that renewal increase.
Okay.
Because all of that will have been incorporated in the final budget that's there. But based on our current policies ending December 31st, don't see a whole lot of choice in the matter, unfortunately, regardless of what it is. But hopefully November 23rd, I have an idea of what it is. But if not, it'll be fully incorporated into the December 14th budget.
Okay, awesome. Thank
No
you.
worries there.
Yeah, when it's like this, for whatever the renewal is, we probably don't have a lot of choices anyways.
Unfortunately, no. I'm just hoping it comes in under the 20, and then we will have created a bit of room in each of the budgets, and it'll just, the story will just get better and not worse.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm hoping.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Any more questions, Council? All right. I know, Candace, when you mentioned about us sitting down for some of the bad news stories, I can recall when we first 7 or 8 years ago, we never saved for a stormy night or a rainy day. So I mean, now at least we've started to save for them unexpected hits to us. So that's a good news for you as the treasurer to put that forward anyway. So
Yes, but we have the resources to cover the emergencies, and that's important.
yeah, thanks for what you do.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there's no other questions then, Council, then the recommendation is that we accept this report with the suggestions given by the CAO Clerk Treasurer. Deputy Mayor Burt's made that motion, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence for action, and there is none. Council liaison reports. Does anyone want to bring anything forward at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I just have a couple things from the last meeting at County Council. I apologize, I didn't get it into print. There was the OPA for the Norwood Park, the extension of the settlement area, and that passed, as I'm sure staff is aware. So I just wanted to let council aware of that. And then there was also a delegation from the Peterborough Family Health Team and physician recruiters. And certainly in the county, we're falling behind in this compared to other parts of the province. So there will be another report coming forward, but apparently there was a task force in place at some point. It wasn't really disbanded, but apparently during this term of council, nothing has been going forward. So they'll be coming back together, and it was quite a good. It was quite a good delegation, and you could certainly hop online and see it. It was right at the beginning of the last meeting. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And just quickly, last night, the mayor and I were at a library board meeting. The strategic plan was finally approved. I think that was a few years in the making. I think Councillor War was on that original committee a number of years ago. So you'll be getting that report, kind of the public one, certainly not the detailed one in the work plan. And then there was a draft budget review last night, and that will be coming to council, I assume, next time. And I just this was a question on that for Candace. I know last year, the CAO librarian presented to council. I didn't know if that was happening this year, or if it wasn't happening this year. I wondered if she would be available to take questions, because I think there will be a number of questions come forward from this council, and I far prefer her to answer them than Roger or I. That being said, I won't be at the next meeting, so I'm just throwing that out there to see what the procedure would be for this year.
Well, I just received the draft today, so I suspect there will be questions based on the draft I seen. The draft is when is it going to the library board for adoption, or was it just at the
last night?
It was that last night.
Last night.
So it's proposing 8%. So I suspect there will be questions. That being said, I have not spoke to the librarian about it at all. I've literally quickly scanned it based on what she sent me today. So I need to talk to her and discuss with her how it's best moving forward. So I don't have an answer for you for your question. I'm sorry. Regardless, it wouldn't be put to you guys as counselors to answer any questions either. If I'm comfortable enough that we're going to move forward and we're just going to include the municipal levy with her presentation included in the agenda package to identify it, then I will answer the questions. And if I'm not comfortable doing that, then she will be here to present. It would never fall back to you council liaisons to report on the finances of a department. That's not your job.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it won't be you
I know there will be.
I just don't know whether she's going to come or not. And her and I haven't even chatted. As I say, it's been in my inbox for like a couple hours. So
yeah, because we just had the meeting last night. So okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And that's the end of my liaison.
Just further to the library for Candace and council, I think you'll find that she had a slideshow there for us from the finance committee, and it pretty well stated everything that they were where they were coming from for that 8%. So it was pretty self-explanatory how the hours were going to be spent for more programming and one thing after another. But you'll be able to see that, Candace, if the slideshow came to you too.
It did. It did. Yeah.
Very good. Anything else under the liaison reports? All right. Thank you. Next then would be the CAO clerk treasurer's list. Candace, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have a couple of things I wanted to just talk to council about. Light Up the Township is going to be December 17th to 19th. So you're going to see that registration form as well as the roadmap going out again. But we are adding a twist to that event this year. It's going to be over 3 days. We will be closing arrears, submitting an application to close County Road 45 and the main street, and doing a Christmas kind of shopping event to support our local vendors, having lots of Christmas lights, potentially having Santa, some elves, people in costumes like the gingerbread man walking around, snowmen, stuff for the kids to come, that sort of thing. Not going to get into the full details because we're still ironing out those details. The community program coordinator is working hard on this event behind the scenes, and Mel and I are supporting her in that. So I think it's going to be a fantastic event. And one thing that came back out of the strategic planning survey is that we need to ensure that we continue to support our local businesses. I think we do a fantastic job at that, but this will again help them in that time of year, in that season. So something kind of fun and different, and it'll be all outside. As far as we know at this point in time, we may be utilizing the town hall a little bit, but other than that, it'll be a fun event for all of the family to kick off the Christmas season and light up the township. And last year it was hugely successful. So I suspect we'll just be growing and adding to that wonderful event. Some good news, Alma Street is going to be reopening. So Alma Street will be open hopefully by the end of next week. So we've split it up and we were able to get the water main across. Victoria Street is still going to be closed. It is what it is. It's going to be closed for a while longer, but I think opening Alma will really kind of take the pain of this project away, or a good portion of it. That is the artery to the community center, to Huckleberg, to the Legion, to the curling club. So I think we've really pushed the contractor, and they literally had to change their work plan in order, because I don't think they really had thought that was their whole work area, and we're like, oh no. So we want Alma open as fast as we can. So they'll be paving Alma Street. The curbs are going in today as we speak right now. The curbs are going in. So they'll just have to wait for the right day to get it paved and get it open, and move the fence over to the north side of Alma, and just carry on with Victoria Street, and at least that one artery is open. So very, very excited about that. Albine Street is being fine graded today. So we'll be looking at I'm assuming it's going to be paved in a very short time frame as well. The sidewalks will not be going in until next year. Just ran out of time. They're not going in this year. There's no sidewalk crew coming in. So the private side, so there's work that has to be done on the private side on some of the properties, need the sidewalks. So the properties on the north side of Albine, we need to have the sidewalks in before we do the private side work. So it'll be done next year. Communication is going to be occurring with all of the homeowners that are going to be affected over the course of the next week or so. November 25th is the community awards. That's basically all being finalized. We've got the trophies in. We will be in touch with council over the course of the next week to talk about your role. We may even have you guys pop over and do just kind of a mock run through, just so you kind of feel comfortable that evening and what it is you're doing. We were able, with the lifting of the restrictions, to be able to do one seating. So we are able to have everyone in at one time, which is so nice. So each nominee is going to have its own table, so 17 tables, and they're allowed to just bring enough people to stay at their one table. And I think it's going to be a great event, recognizing all of those wonderful businesses and organizations. We have 2 tenders and RFPs out. One, the expansion to the community center, as I stated, which is due November 25th. The mandatory on-site meeting at the community center is the 15th of November, where we meet with the contractors. If they don't come to the on-site meeting or book an on-site meeting, they can't submit an RFP. So I suspect they'll be booking times with the consultant. As well as the curbside collection tender was released today, and it'll be up November 23rd. One other thing I wanted to chat to you guys about was in-person council meetings. So how do you guys feel about holding your council meetings in the Millennium Room instead of the town hall? Any problems with that?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, that's good news. From an IT perspective, based on our preliminary research, we are working with a company out of Peterborough who is basically, I think, based on what Mel and I have learned, are doing every municipality in Hastings, Northumberland, Peterborough counties. But anyway, apparently there's only one company in our area that does this. So we're looking at how to get a hybrid model in order to ensure that we can have people. So say a staff person, say I got ill. Obviously, I need to attend a council meeting. So, but I couldn't pass the screening to come. So the screening hasn't gone anywhere. So if you don't pass the screening, you're not coming to present. So to not have a hybrid model where we could have someone, I guess, electronically Zoom in, even though it's not going to be Zoom, but for lack of a better word, Zoom into that meeting while the rest of everyone is in person, I think we're going to be restricting ourselves, because then we would automatically have to make that meeting fully electronic.
Yeah.
As soon as one person couldn't attend, as soon as one person failed a screening. I don't think that's good planning. I think that's setting us up for failure. So we need a hybrid approach. So in order to do a hybrid approach, it is the IT portions of it. The Millennium Room has more current IT infrastructure to work with. So it just, from a sound perspective alone, is going to be the bigger concern when you're we're going to have multiple webcams. We're probably at the beginning going to have a staff person outside of Mel and I attending these meetings that is just going to be fully trained and able to handle the IT portions of the meeting. I can't take it on. I've got too many things going on in my brain during a council meeting as it is. I have 50 tabs open, and I know because I'm focusing on that, Mel has to get the minutes and everything else that she's doing. So we may have to have a third person there, at least at the beginning, until we figure out all of this new IT to be able to have. We don't know if it's live stream. It may be just uploaded after the fact. We don't have all of those details yet. We've got a rough quote, but they need to come out and do a full on site visit and all of the capabilities that we're going to be left with. We think it's going to be a pretty decent system. But again, it's technology. It works as good as it wants to on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to have to roll with it a little bit, be a bit patient with it. And the odds of having all of that IT stuff up and running and in person for you for November 23rd, it's not happening. So I am fine if you guys wish to move to an in-person meeting at any point in time. You're just not going to have the electronic portion of the meeting up and running. So you would be going back to what we were pre-COVID as far as just having the council meetings in person, and people of course can attend following COVID rules and protocols, etc. I do know you can go unmasked if two things are met. One, you're quarantined from the public. So you need to be roped off so that your section is not accessible from the public. So we rope you off, and all of your stations are the 2 meters apart. Then you do not need to be masked. So that is a possibility. So if you want to wait until we can put the meetings up onto YouTube for the public, we need to stay electronic until we get all this IT stuff figured out. And based on the demand, it's going to be a little bit yet, or we go back in person and people can attend if they'd like. That is basically your option as it sits today. I can't make the IT go any faster, unfortunately. So it is what it is. So it's either in person, no YouTube, electronic, stay with YouTube, and wait till we have your new meeting space completely set up and ready to go, and can go either live or uploaded, one or the other. If you do not wish to give direction today, that is fine. I'm assuming by the November 23rd meeting, when I come back, we will hope to have the costing and the pricing and the time frame and all of that sort of thing up and running. So you'll be able to hear on the 23rd a bit more about it. But if you would like to be in person, it's your show. So
Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I guess, and you've already stated that, Candace, I guess my fear is if the next meeting goes to in person and say the mayor isn't feeling well and doesn't pass the screening, and Melanie isn't feeling well and doesn't pass the screening, we could be in a bit of a mess, and the same would go for a delegation. So we've been, as much as it would be nice to get into a live in-person session, that's the only thing that I'm concerned about. I do like the hybrid model. I think we all agree that we don't like being videoed and we don't like being, put out there, but it's reality and we can't change that now. And I think it's important for the public that is available. So that, that's not going to change. So from my perspective, I don't have an issue waiting. That being said, I'm away at the next meeting. But so you can do what you want. But I kind of like to see, I guess my question to you is, I know you said it's going to be a while because it's one company that's doing everybody. Like, do you anticipate that this would be done in January, or are you thinking,
Yes.
so January, it's not like March or April. It's within a month, 6 weeks.
Well, I
8 weeks?
guess it could, I'll know more on the 23rd
Okay.
of November.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think, I don't know, Mel, in any of our communications, it's not like he's come out and said, oh, you're months and months away.
Right.
By any stretch of the imagination. It's just, we have to get put into their schedule of work. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have Christmas in there and of course that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
ultimately, right now, we go back to in person, we do run the risk of people failing the screening until the government that's kind of, I don't know when that screening is going to go away. But as soon as any one of us have a cough or a headache or anything and we fail that screening, we're not going to that meeting. And if it's the mayor or I, well, we're going to have an electronic meeting anyway.
Yeah.
Because right now we just don't have the technology to Zoom us in while you guys are all in person.
I just have a comment. I think my thoughts along with Deputy Mayor Burt is like, we're just going to come right into budget time and one thing after another. And that's all we need to do is not be open and transparent. And we know how many people actually come to our meetings is very rare, but I think just this time while we're in Zoom and Zoom is working for us. And when you present the budget, it comes up on our screen and people can see it as a recording and whatever. There's not going to be anything that's going to be taken for granted. They'll be able to see it in black and white and go over it again because it's going to be recorded. So I think in my thoughts only, and council could say something different, but I think we should just hold steady, keep going with what we're doing until we can get this proved when it's not so important that we're not going to foul up by having some poor recording that people think we're trying to hide something, especially when we're coming into an election year too. So I just think I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I do know people, we don't have the right numbers, how many people actually watch this, but I do know talking to a few people in the community that some do. So I just think it's best be safe for us. Candace?
That is a good point. I think that especially when the meeting where we set the water sanitary rates, we tend to have public that come. And I don't really think the first meeting that we go in person without uploading the meeting for the public to watch be the date we're setting the budgets.
Yes.
It's probably not, as you state, the most transparent way to conduct business. So, and I mean, it's interactive, and if someone wants to come and we can let them talk. And so, yeah.
Well, we've talked about this before. There's no set time for us to change off from being Zoom to actually being in real time or whatever, or in person. So I'd say I don't think we need a motion for that. It's just more of a consensus of a shaking of the head. Yes, we all are in agreement, or if somebody is not in agreement, then speak up now and say it. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, and I'm just going to basically echo your response and Deputy Mayor's response. Next meeting is a big meeting. It is setting the budget, or at least, a good review of what the final budget is going to look like. I would hate for us to be trialing a new system not that every council meeting isn't important, but that's kind of a really important one. And I just think, let's just get all our ducks in the right row, not be pressured, get it right, and we will move to in person. I know we all would love to be in person, but we got one chance to get it right. And I just soon, for the sake of maybe 1 or 2 more months, let's get it right. But in the interim, continue the way we're going, because there are some important topics coming up in the next couple of meetings.
So I see that the nod of the head from just about everyone as you were speaking there, that we'll probably leave it up to staff to bring it back to us. And looks like, so no pressure to be after into January sometime when you get everything in order and get it tested out one thing after another. And if it's February, then so be it. I mean, I'm comfortable on Zoom. I'm comfortable speaking in public now too. It doesn't matter to me either way, but I don't want us to have a mistake and have something not quite work out quite right. And I'd just rather be err on the side of caution. Candace?
Okay, that's great. I completely agree, and definitely takes a substantial amount of stress off of our plates. But just to remind, council hasn't seen the proposed council meeting schedule yet, but just as a reminder, we did bump up the budget for adoption in December because there's
That's right.
no meeting the second Tuesday of January. So we don't have our first council meeting in January till the 4th Tuesday.
Right.
So you have from December 14th right around to the 4th Tuesday of January with no meetings.
Yep.
So that's a good chunk of time, I think, to really solve this. But so just a reminder.
Well, just think of it this way. There might be 1 or 2 cameras on that ship with the excavator too. So you just never know, right? So, Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Excuse me, I just have a comment. Yeah, I think that's certainly the best decision for this council. I guess I just have a comment on Millennium Room versus Town Hall. I think, we were kind of looking forward to being in the Town Hall. It's the historical building and all the work that's been done there. And, the past business that has been conducted, but certainly from, financial IT operations standpoint, I think we completely understand the implications going forward. So, yeah, just a comment. And obviously the Millennium Room is, given the technology that has to be done, I understand completely that that is the location where it has to be. So just a comment. Paula might have a comment to add to that. She's our historical person in the group. Sorry, Paul, I'm not putting you on the spot, but
No, through you, Mayor. The comment I have is we have to conduct business for the township, and wherever it takes place, it takes place. It would have been nice to be in the historical building, but if the logistics of the matter is that it has to be the Millennium Room, then it's a beautiful building as well. So it is what it is.
Yeah, my only thoughts or concerns at that time when it was talked about upstairs in the historical building of the town hall was that the storage of the council tables, basically, how they're going to be tucked away and how they're maybe not used as nice as what we're going to do with them later in life, and they still have to be put away and brought back out, where I do think that we can hide them a little better in a corner of the Millennium Room than in the corner of the town hall up there somehow. So I think it's a good choice. I think staff's thought about this a lot and deliberated themselves, and well thought out as far as I'm concerned too. So is there anything else on your CAO's list, Candace? Okay.
I think Councillor Archer had something.
Yeah,
to say.
I just noticed.
I just had a question through you, Mayor. So will we stay over there when construction's going on at the Millennium Room, or will that be doable, or are they going to be tearing the front entrance up there at some point for the addition?
Yeah, there will definitely obviously be construction going on over there. I think a lot of the heavy stuff will be hopefully going on when we're into the 1 meeting a month phase of it in July and August is my hope. Obviously, we are going to have to deal with that as it comes based on what's happening on site for construction in correlation to the council meeting date and how noisy it's actually going to be. And in all honesty, if they have to not work in that area for 2 hours while we quickly do our meeting, then they'll have to accommodate that.
Okay.
Good thought, though.
Good question. Okay, Candace.
Mayor, I left most important to last. So over the course of the weekend, there was a tournament held at the community center. It went well. The Ministry of Labor showed up on Saturday to do an inspection on the COVID-19 protocols and operations for the township. The Kingston office is going around and conducting inspections. That being said, we were in compliance. We had no fines issued. There was a couple of recommendations of best practices, such as changing the color of our X's of where we mark where people stand on the outside of the building to be black. Adding some verbiage in regards on the outside of the building for signage that states that if you are standing within 2 meters of another person outside, you still need to be masked. So just a more heavy reminder for that on the exterior of the building, as well as when checks were being done for vaccination, one of the screeners recognized the person that they were screening in, so didn't check the ID. Of course, small area, people know everybody, so didn't check the ID. Ministry of Labor said, doesn't matter if they're your grandma, your dad, your sister, your neighbor, you have to check the identification. So we need to communicate that back out. It just means you have to do a 5-second scan instead of a 20-second scan, according to the Ministry of Labor representative. So it's quite the reminder, and hopefully that Ministry of Labor rep goes around to all of the facilities, because all we hear on a regular basis is what this arena is doing versus that arena and who should be doing what when. So that should hopefully solve some of those problems. That being said, there is a couple of recommendations that staff want to make to council that I would like to put in your ear right now that I would kindly request that council consider during the general business portion of this meeting, if they'd be so kind to do so. One of them means doors remain open at 30 minutes prior to rental, but are closed at the start of the rental time. So we open them at 30 minutes and then they just stay open until the rental time. Right now they're closed. Well, they're never closed 15 minutes too, because it takes too long to check everybody in. So it'll be just kind of formalizing what's already happening. That the away team will be responsible for assisting with the COVID check-in process in order to assist Norwood Minor Sports and the home team, because as of right now, it's falling all onto them. It's taking too long. It's onerous. The away team can check their own team, or at least assist with checking people coming in to speed up that process. So that means we'll be relinquishing a bit of our responsibility onto the away team, but through Norwood Minor Sports. Upon entering, spectators can wait in the lobby until game time. So they can come in, wait in the lobby. Once game time starts, they go through the center doors up to wherever they need to sit. And spectators can sit in any section, and seats will be cleaned as often as possible, or at a minimum every 4 hours. Those I would have loved to have put out an addendum to the agenda this morning formally to write up a nice staff report for you guys to get that done, but unfortunately my day didn't allow for that. So I am putting those things forward. I can tell you that we have received complaints about the canteen not being open. Township staff are not recommending, unless council feels otherwise, that we open the canteen and bring in a full inventory of food right now. All Peterborough County municipalities, it is our understanding based on our rec managers meetings that all canteens are going to remain closed till January. The concern is we bring in a whole bunch of two concerns. One, we bring in a whole bunch of inventory and then we're stuck with a whole bunch of inventory like we were last time. We need to ensure that this is completely gone. Two, the third, that people then remove, as soon as you open the canteen, there won't be a mask on in the place, because everyone will have food and drink in their hand and they'll just have a bag of chips that whole game and they'll sit there with their no mask on. So those are the two concerns, inventory and staffing being the biggest one. We have to run extra staff for COVID protocols. So we've pulled our canteen staff into the attendance. So all of our canteen people are working COVID attendance, so we would have to take a look at that. Inventory is a concern, and then the masks come off. So that has been our response for the 1 or 2 complaints that we've received in regards to the canteen. In regards to the 4 spectators per person, of course, no one likes restrictions of any kind. But we've been counting the number of people in every single rental and every single game. Haven't even hit half the amount of people that are allowed in that place as it is, at 160 people per session. So lots of room there. So we're not feeling any pressure. That's, I think, basically it. If we let them sit wherever they want, and we get the away team to be able to assist with the check-ins, I think, and leave the doors open till the rental starting, I think that'll alleviate a bit more of the pressures. One more step in the right direction, I guess. So I will leave it for council to consider in general business, and that's it for my CO list.
All right, thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
So next on the agenda then is general business. So now that the community center is strong on our minds, who would like to bring some questions up under the community center for Candace? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, just one clarifying question, Candace. I'm aligned to all these. Actually, I was in attendance Saturday at the tournament. I was there spectating a couple referees. So that makes sense, because I know in speaking to them that people are, the 15 minutes before isn't necessarily always working, because there's people coming in right up until game time because it's taken them that long to do it. So that makes sense. As far as the away team, what are other centers doing? Like, do we think our organization will possibly be asked the same at other centers too? Or is that just kind of a thought at our center to help keep the traffic flow moving through faster?
I don't think it's across Peterborough County, but I do know of 2 other centers doing that.
Okay, so that's good, because that means we're not trying to go down a path all by ourselves.
No, definitely not going by ourselves. No.
Okay, and then the other question was, upon entering, spectators can stay in the lobby. Can they remain seated in the lobby to watch the game if it's, I'll use for example, an elderly somebody that's just finds the cold or is hard to walk?
Yes, so that's already been dealt with. So that section of the arena, those indoor stands have been identified for accessibility, for lack of a better term, accessibility provisions that is determined by township staff.
Okay. And my last one, if I can, Mayor, is on the canteen. I'm comfortable with the decision we're at. Yes, I understood there was one complaint over the weekend, but one complaint among the amount of people that were at the community center over the weekend. I'm like you. Right now, numbers are not necessarily moving in the right direction. So for us to go open that canteen, staff it up, inventory it up, and find out maybe a week from now, things go backwards again, that would be a concern of a lot of investment. And like you said, once somebody starts eating, the mask will be off the whole time they're in there, and it becomes very difficult for the staff to try and enforce that, because the person's just going to say I'm eating when we know that they're not at that particular time. So makes it a challenge for them enforcing the rules.
Okay, any other comments on the community center at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, actually, Barry had covered a couple of things, the one with the accessibility in the lobby, so that's good to hear. And then I agree with the canteen. Let's just wait, see what happens. I think that was a prior agreement, but I think it's important to keep checking this, looking at it, and certainly allowing the staff the freedom to adjust and change as is needed, because we're not the ones there 5, 6, 7 days a week, and staff knows what is going to work and what isn't. So I think just realizing that it's important for the community center staff to move as they need to. And so I was just questioning, there's only been about half the amount, approximately maximum people in there that there could be. And I do think that it's good they can sit anywhere they want. I think that's far easier on staff. So if the 4 spectators per person you had mentioned, so I guess I'm not sure where I am on this. is that still going to be in play, or are we not going to worry about that because only half the amount is in use? Can you just clarify that, please?
Yeah, that's up to council. So as of right now, we have 4 spectators per person. There has been some complaints received in regards to the 4 spectators per person, and township staff decided that we would count and monitor that moving forward. And if it became, based on the lifting of restrictions, an issue and there's more people wanting to attend than we're allowing, then we would take another look at it. But we're not seeing it. Plus, we allow spectator substitution. So if we didn't allow that before, so if one player is bringing 1, well, the next player can bring 7. So we're just not seeing. I think it's more the thought of the restriction versus that it's actually impeding anybody from actually attending. We're not close to the public. We're not shutting people out. Councillor Walsh attended, on the weekend. He was able to attend. People are attending that aren't necessarily assigned to a player. And we're not seeing the numbers. So right now, we're not recommending to deviate from the 4, but that's a decision of council. If you'd like to lift to unlimited spectators, then that's your decision to make.
Well, excuse me, I'm not sure about limiting sport, the 4 spectators per person. I think, what is it, 160 allowed in there at one time, correct?
Yeah, that's because there's 40
Two.
on
Yeah.
ice times 4 people is 160.
Yeah.
That's where we get that. Yeah.
And I guess my issue is it not difficult for staff to monitor that? Well, this child has brought 4 people with them. I don't know. I just find
we don't monitor
Okay.
it because it would be impossible.
Yeah,
Because of the spectator substitution. How would we know if
exactly.
Johnny brought in 1 and Jack brought in 7, so combined they still have 8. So it's up to the user group, kind of when they come in. It's a governing tool to regulate the numbers. So we didn't just go from 0 to imploding, right? But the sections, to be honest with you, it was easier with the sections, going with no section, not knowing where anybody's seating. We'll have to literally clean every seat in the place every 4 hours, where before we knew kind of back and forth. It was less cleaning more often. Now to concede to this, just to be able to let people to sit wherever they want, and every 4 hours, it's less cleaning and disinfection. And we have to do every seat in the place, because unless we sit and monitor which seats have been sat in over those 4 hours, you have to clean them all. So we're just moving to cleaning them all every 4 hours. And it is what it is. COVID hasn't been kind all the way along. It's not going to start being kind now. So, it's just one of those things we got to deal with.
Councillor Archer, you had your hand up?
Yeah, the only question I was going to say or answer is with the other teams, the opposing teams looking after their own group now, they should be able to, if somebody wants to bring 5 and somebody else wants to bring 1, they should have that on their group, as long as they know that they can substitute. And I think that'll do away with any problems you had, with prior problems, because they'll be able to come. I think there's been people come and they didn't think they could get in, so they didn't come with the restriction. But if they know that, and they're looking after their own group, they're really allowed 80 people, which they'll never bring. So
yeah, exactly.
I went to Strathcona. I've been to 2 or 3 rinks with the grandson there, as a substitute, and there's nobody even going to them games where there's more than a couple of people per child anyway. So.
Yeah, and a lot of times you find parents with multiple siblings going in different directions. You have one parent going with this one to this game, and another parent's going with that one to another game. It's really the grandparents. And we lifted the spectator substitution 2 weeks ago. Right. And we advertised it out to the user groups, but I don't know if it's getting out to the general public, hitting the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles, that's the extended family, to let them know they can attend.
But now when they're coming from other towns, they're gonna know that they have to look after their own group.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that should make it more accessible for them. They should do away with any complaints.
I hope so.
I think that's really good.
Okay, good.
Is there any other questions on the community center? Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Candace, I was just wondering, is the sanitation of all of the seats, is it mandated by public health? Like you have to do the sanitization of every seat in the arena, or is that something that you guys have taken on? Is it a public health mandate?
Well, it's a provincial mandate, the cleaning and disinfection. So yes, so the wording is it has to be clean and disinfected to the point that you can state that it's clean and disinfected. But it doesn't state how often in the provincial regulation, but they haven't lifted the cleaning and disinfection regulation since this thing began. It's ongoing. So the same cleaning and disinfection protocol that's in place now was in place 6 months ago. So Peterborough Public Health has then, like, because there's no saying you shall clean that item every hour, Peterborough Public Health has stated that every 4 hours for an item that's being utilized by the public would be considered enough. So the reason we have to do every seat is when we open it up and don't allow section per rental and flip it back and forth, we won't know what seats have been sat in over those 4 hours and which ones haven't been, unless we I don't know how we would monitor that. So we just have to clean every single one every 4 hours.
No, I understand that. I was just, you think of other buildings that people go in and you just wonder how often, the seats are cleaned. It's one thing to, sanitize your hand and you're at the cart or whatever, you're going into a grocery store, but you don't know everything that someone's touched. And so that's why I was asking that question, if the cleaning of the seats, so it's only every 4 hours for the seats, and it's just because we've opened up the sections that it's now a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my comment is that, so just chatting with a few people out in the area there, that having the opposing team being checked on their own by having one of their own people do it is something that we need to probably make a motion on, according to what we've been discussing all along here with suggestions from the CAO and the community staff. Because, well, first of all, it takes a lot of the onus off our own people. If somehow they're letting people through that may not be showing their cards quite as often as they should, or one thing after another. I mean, no matter what, Candace, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but if for some reason they don't check somebody in the health boards there, that person could be charged as well as our township too for not doing the right thing. Is that correct?
Yes. So as the owner of the facility, we are ultimately liable for any, just like the Ministry of Labor came, they didn't talk to Norwood Minor Hockey. They talked, even though they were doing the screenings, they talked to us. So
Right.
As owner of the facility, we are liable. So there is risk with relinquishing that responsibility to the opposing team. Right now, we are relinquishing the responsibility to Norwood Minor Sports, who we have familiarity with and a long-standing relationship. So from a risk management perspective, it is my opinion that risk is less. So the only other alternative, if you feel the risk is too high, then we have to have a staff person there to check in the opposing team and have township staff do it. I know there's concern that the opposing team coming into another center that's not their own may not be as diligent with the checks. And we have received complaints that from residents and hockey parents who take the pandemic very seriously, that they have concerns in regards to the checks not being completed properly. The mayor and I have received those phone calls. So the only way to mitigate that risk is to have township staff check the opposing team. And then we're also then somewhat, I could potentially be perceived as favoring the opposing team, because now we're doing it for them and putting all of the onus on our own Norwood Minor Sports. And I'm pretty sure that's what would be said. So the only way around this is that we dedicate a staff person to assist with check-ins of everyone coming in. So wherever the help is needed, they're there, whether that's to assist Norwood Minor Sports, whether that's to assist with the opposing team. That's really the only way to mitigate the risk, or we take the risk on that the opposing team checks themselves on site by their person. I don't think they can't check in advance.
Yeah.
They
No,
have
it's
to do it
impossible.
at the door.
Yeah,
2 lineups, opposing team, home team. Come in, do your checks. Let the players in first, not because we're mandating it, but it only makes sense to let the players in first so they have more time in the dressing room and the parents come after. But
I can't imagine somebody's going to drive from another center if they're not vaccinated, if they know they're going to be checked there by, you know.
yeah, it's the black market vaccine certs is the problem.
yeah, but it's not only that, it's he said, she said. So like, it's like, oh, yeah, that's my mom, she's been vaccinated. But meanwhile, there's not a check made. So we're on the hook for something like that, as foolish as it sounds, but we've already been checked by health board coming in from Kingston, not our own health board. So, I mean, like, we have to be careful how we do this, no matter
Well,
how
the
you look
Ministry of
at it.
Labor is coming back. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, if I can circle back on this story. I'm more now in favor of us dedicating one staff to simply assist with COVID checking. That way we're not putting all the onus on, in this case, Norwood Minor Sports or whatever other user groups are, and we're not favoring the visiting team. We're simply there helping the whole process go by faster and smoother, because I do worry, because now you're extending our risk of liability is getting extended to somebody third party that may just not, maybe a little more lackadaisical than what we really want them to be. And if our staff is there simply helping Norwood Minor Sports, I think that assistance is better than letting the visiting team do their own.
And I think we could clarify that it would be on game nights only, that we would not be assisting with practice nights.
Mhm.
Oh.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Sorry, broadband issues. Yeah, I do agree with Councillor Walsh. I think if we have one staff member during game times at the community center, and, you know, if visiting team is longer, give them a hand. If home team is longer getting through the door, perhaps give them a hand. Just, you know, I guess be a floater. And I think that's a good way to, you know, ensure that the visiting team is also complying. And I don't see any reason, you know, I'm sure other centers will be doing the same. And it'd be nice if everything was exactly the same across the board. We know it's not, but hopefully it's close. And no, I agree. I think having that one staff member able to float and do it as needed, if the lines are long, help out where needed. And this, I guess this question goes to Candace. Do we have staff available between cleaning and, you know, doing everything they have to do, or is there a necessity to have to hire? I don't know, or increase hours, or how does it look?
Well, I knew that it was going to be a recommendation coming forward. So thank you, Council, for agreeing, but we do have the staff. Traditionally on game nights, we just run 2 a lot of times, and then we have third on tournament nights, even 2. We just ran 2 on Sunday, 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. We would just have to run 3 all the time on all the game nights and all the time, instead of just running on those times where there's just 2. So we would have to run with 3. So people are going to get more hours, and the students won't be complaining about that, I don't think.
Councillor Archer, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, actually, I've only been over to 2 games in Norwood, and I was going to say that they'd been helping out anyway, but I didn't want to say that.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
I knew you probably knew that, but I was waiting for everybody else to kind of say we should be helping, because no, we already have been doing it, but, you know, unannounced. There was a lineup there the last game. I was there a week ago, and if they wouldn't have helped out, we probably would have missed the first 5 minutes of the game. It was that, you know, that was probably the most people I'd seen there. So it has.
Yeah, and I think we just need to do better with differentiating the lineups and yell out and say players first,
First.
parents, and then other spectators. Because if, say, a grandparent or an aunt and uncle is getting in exactly right at the rent, at 7 o'clock when the game starts at 7, they just simply have to walk to their seat. But we can't have players or officiants or coaches and stuff getting in at that time. So I think there has to be some managing of the lines coming in too, a little bit based on my conversations with the lead hand there. I think we need to just maybe do a bit better in managing the lineups to make sure whoever's getting in there is getting in there first, prioritizing the lines.
I think that will happen now that you're allowing the 30 minutes. I think what happened, everybody was trying to get in with it. Like even the referees had to go and like sort of butt the line to get in to get ready when the last time I was there. Where now I think with the 30 minutes, it'll be a little better. The players will go in ahead of the spectators.
I hope so. And we can just in an email shoot it out to minor sports and the other user groups and just say, as a friendly reminder, please ensure that the officiants and coaches and players are entering the building first. You would think it would stand to reason, but
that's what they want. That's what they're going there to watch. You think?
Yep. But exactly. So thank you, council, for agreeing. I do think it's the best risk management. I know there's other centers that have relinquished that responsibility to the opposing team. And I think we could, with the Ministry of Labor checks, I think we're walking into potential issues. So if you would like, I can craft a motion.
Yeah, I would. I just have one more comment or for clarification is those letters that we had made up before for anyone that wanted to give staff a hard time or a complaint, say from a visitor from out of town that doesn't like the rules, no matter how much, those papers are still there to hand to the league as well as to that person and so on.
Yes, all of that stuff's still in play. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We just have
Yeah,
to be
and-
aware of the violation and prove it. And a lot of times we become aware of it after the fact and it's hearsay. It's not, a lot of times we're not seeing something township staff with their own eyes that they can verify at that time, or just maybe with us on the door checking, we'll, consistently we'll run across that. And unfortunately, sometimes it just takes 1 or 2 examples and it sets the tone.
Well, I think it's good then that no matter what, like you said, it doesn't matter whether it's a younger brother, sister, uncle, great aunt, whatever, they have to show some form of ID with the vaccination, and there is no other way around it. Simple as that. So I think that's a good way to go. And yes, I do need help to clarify this for a motion, please. So council is well aware of what we need to do or what's being asked of us. So please. Go ahead.
That the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood approves the 5th amendment to the Asphodel-Norwood Community Center reopening safety plan as follows. Doors to remain open at 30 minutes prior to rental until the start of the rental time. Spectators will be permitted to sit in any section, and township staff will clean as often as possible or at a minimum of every 4 hours. And further, that township staff will be responsible for assisting with COVID protocol check-in process, the COVID protocol check-in process. And further, that upon entering, spectators are permitted to wait in the lobby until the start of the rental time.
Just further, were we going to ask the visiting team to check their own with assistance from the township staff too?
It was my understanding that we were going to forego that and just leave township staff doing it. And but council can amend that motion. I'm just doing based on what I was hearing.
No, I'm fine with that. If council's fine with that too, then just leave it on our own. Okay. So you've heard the motion. Is there any, well, I guess let's have a who wants to make that motion that was so well crafted? Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. All right, is there any other further discussion towards the motion then, please? Okay, a lot of discussion, so there is none in now. That's good. All in favor? And then that's carried. Thank you, Candace, for that. That was it's going to be a tough hit no matter how we look at it again. People aren't going to be happy with all our decisions, that's for sure, but we're doing the best that we can. And like you said, I think COVID rates are going up since Halloween already and Thanksgiving. Looks like I heard today they're really definitely talking about a fourth wave coming our way. So let's hope not. All right. Is there anything else under the general business then, now that we've covered the community center? All right. Oh, Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. And I had actually brought this to Candace's attention on Friday. I attended a Lions meeting on Thursday evening and walked in with a Lions member to the town hall. And our new ramp that we built, love it, good feedback from it. But the feedback provided was there's no lighting. We have a light at the front of the town hall, but there's no lighting as somebody is walking up the handicapped ramp. It's very, very
accessibility.
Yeah, it's dark. So actually I showed a picture of it to Peter and Seamus actually Friday morning and sent a little note off to Candace. I think it's something we need to look at from a standpoint of accessibility and that somebody doesn't fall because they can't see out there.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under general business? All right, seeing none, then thank you very much. Moving on then, on the agenda, we close session. Oh, sorry, Candace, go ahead.
So is Councillor Walsh wanting a motion to direct staff? Because he brought it up and that's great that he mentioned it, and I know we've spoken to two staff members about it. I haven't, it's going to be discussed at management team tomorrow. But if there's direction coming from council, then we would.
Okay.
Not that we're not going to take, I guess this is my point. I want to formalize the process. So it's not that we wouldn't take it on ourselves, but we know a counselor on their own can't direct staff. So if we get it in general business in a motion, then we can take it as direction, even though we would take it on anyway, because it's a great suggestion.
Yeah,
but
so just to formalize that, then I would put forward a motion that we do address the lack of lighting at the side of the town hall from an accessibility standpoint, and that it be reviewed and fixed.
I think maybe we could, I don't know what it's going to take as far as costing or options or what it is. If we need to report back, if it's simple and easy, we'll just do it. If it's complicated and it needs to be added to the 2022 budget, you'll find out about that in the budget as well.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll have a seconder to the motion. Is there a seconder to it?
Yeah.
Councillor Archer. Any more discussion on that motion? Okay, my discussion on it was I believe there's a light above the old door that goes down into the lion's den. And if that light switch was left on with a motion sensor, that would probably be a very quick fix for that ramp, just in that spot. If the light was staying on and it was a motion sensor, it'd be
we'll have to do a light audit at night. That'll be the recommendation that I make to management team tomorrow. We're gonna have to go out there at night and do a light audit based on turn on all the lights that are in the facility on the outside, see what we're being dealt with. Speaking of the lion's den, the door is getting replaced today to down below so it can open and close properly.
Nice.
It's going in today. So if there's an option already there, that would be ideal.
Awesome. Yeah. And that light presently, sorry, Mayor, that light presently the other night was not working. So maybe it is a simple fix as that. Like,
switching it to motion. That'd be lovely.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the only reason I was just going past that without asking for the motion was I knew staff would take it under their wing with just the thought of that going forward. But now the motion's on the floor and it's been duly seconded. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor then. And that's carried. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else still under general business then? All right, seeing no hands, then moving on. A closed session, we have none today. Is there any notices of motion? There's none on the agenda. Nobody has anything brought forward. Nothing. Okay. Candace, I'll have you read the bylaws then, please.
Being a bylaw to authorize execution of a site plan control agreement between Zhang and the Corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2021-55.
Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion on that? Councillor Walsh,
Oh, sorry, no, I was just
Okay.
voting.
all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next, please.
Being a bylaw to authorize execution of a site plan control agreement between 2760985 Ontario Inc. and the Corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2021-56.
Motioned by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-33, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and committees for the Corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2021-57.
Motioned by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held November 9th, 2021, be read first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2021-58.
Thank you. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion? No. All in favor for the confirming bylaw? Carried. Thank you. You see your future meeting schedule before you. And I'm asking for a motion then to adjourn this meeting at 3:36 p.m. on November the 9th, 2021, and that our next regular meeting will be on November 23rd, 2021 at 1 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Motioned by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. And remember, November 11th at 11 p.m. is Remembrance Day. Please take your time. 2 minutes of silence is very nice. And everyone be safe out there and have a great day. Bye for now.
Take
Everyone.
care.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye now.